Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Lidia and the changes she got in the recent patch 4.20 and what I think about these changes as a Lidia player. The first and I think most important change to Lidia is her rage drive is now plus 15 on block instead of plus 27. So this is super important. Because you essentially don't get any mix-up off of this on block anymore, which I think is a very good change. I think it's stupid that they thought this was a good idea in the first place. If you didn't know before, because this was plus 27, Lidia transitioning into the second stance took 20 frames to be able to do. So because of that, Lidia here would be plus 7 on block. And because her moves come out in 16 frames, that means she would be able to beat whatever move the opponent does with one of her moves out of the second stance, giving her a free 50-50 mix-up unless the opponent had rage. Now you can't do that anymore because she's minus 5. So this means a couple of things. The first thing that this means is that if your opponent gets a read on Lidia transitioning into the second part of the stance, just like if forward 2 hits, or down forward 2 hits, or 1-2-2 hits, Lidia can get launched. And if she's in rage to be able to do this, that means that she dies, right? But I think what's more important is that the stance transition is reactable. So the fact that the opponent can attack into it at all means that your opponent, when this rage drive comes out, can just react to the stance transition and then interrupt it with a 10-frame move on reaction. And that's true for forward 2 as well. That's true doing this in neutral. And the only way against someone who knows this matchup well, you would realistically be able to get into this stance at all is by doing her rage drive and having it blocked. And now she can't do that anymore. So to me, as far as I'm concerned, this stance may as well not exist for Lidia. It's completely redundant. It doesn't work because you can react to the transition. So none of these moves really serve any purpose because she's never practically going to be in this stance. You can get into it if you do it with some sort of Oki setup and your opponent stays on the ground and then they like tech roll and you time it perfectly and they decide to get up as soon as you go into the second stance. Then sure, but the circumstances for that are so specific that practically, because the rage drive got changed, this may as well not exist. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think that's completely reasonable, and I've been asking for this to get changed since the character basically came out. But realistically, that's how the situation is. Of course, it's like it's like Heihachi's down back 2, right? Practically speaking, Heihachi's down back 2 or Armor King's down back 4, lows like that are seeable and they're launch punishable, and because of that they serve no practical purpose. But if you're playing at someone that doesn't know the matchup very well, and they don't practice reacting to those moves, then those moves are still very useful, right? And it's kind of the same thing here. Practically speaking, against someone that knows this matchup well, because of this change, both of these stances, I should say, she may as well not have them. They're completely useless, but they're still very powerful against someone who doesn't lack this matchup. Especially because of the next change, Catfoot Stance 2, which is this move, is now minus 10 on block instead of minus 9. This move is already pretty much useless. And the reason why it's pretty much useless is because this move's the entire purpose for this move existing is to counter hit launch your opponent if you do something like forward 2 on hit and you guess that they think you're going to transition to the next stance and they're gonna try launching you. If you think that, if you make that read, then you do the 2 to be able to counter hit launch them. And that's the only time they're going to actually attack into this stance. But because this transition is reactable, no one that knows this matchup well enough to know that's an option they have is going to make a random read and try launching you out of the second transition when they can just safely interrupt it on reaction. So that makes this move completely redundant. So before, the way I think this move was, the reason why I would use this move is if I threw out forward 2 as a poke, I would just press 2 because it's -9 and it's no risk, right? Because the other options she has out of this stance are risky, right? You do this one, you can get sidestepped and get launched. You do this one, it can get ducked and you can get launched. You do this one, they can react to it and duck it and then launch you, right? So this is the only, was the only option she had if you did forward 2 that just, you know, was an option that you could do and pose no risk to you for doing forward 2 on hit. And now that's not an option anymore because now her 2 is -10. And for me, because of this change, forward 2 has become a completely unusable move outside of round enders because this stance just doesn't work because you can react to it. Because you can react to this stance transition, this move doesn't work. This move doesn't work. This is a duckable high that knocks the opponent out of Lydia's good range, and this is a reactable high. And if this hits, the 4 and the 3 can be sidestepped. The 1 and the 2 can't, but the 1's a duckable high that will get you launched, and the 2 is -10, and they both don't really do anything for you anyway on hit. 1 can be nice at the wall, but 2 isn't going to do anything for you. It's +4, it does 18 damage, right? And if it gets blocked, it's -10. So if the 2, the only safe option, gets blocked, you're eating more damage and having to deal with more pressure than what you're getting off of doing forward 2 in the first place. So, to me, it's a very weird change because it's almost like they don't understand, 1, that this transition is reactable, and 2, they don't understand what the original purpose of this move was, because if they knew what the original purpose of it was, it doesn't make any sense for it to be -10, but that's what they changed. Does it matter to me, really, though? No, because I didn't use this stance in the first place, and I don't think this affects Lidia much overall anyway. I mean, forward 2, as much as people want to say it's a good mid, it's really not, and it's because, again, this stance doesn't work, and I play Lidia thinking, with the idea that forward 2 is a useless move anyway, and that you shouldn't use it, and it's actually better for her on block than it is on hit. So, to me, this doesn't change anything, but, you know, a lot of Lidia players do use this, and again, this is my thinking if you're playing against someone that knows this matchup very well. If you're not, then that's a whole nother thing. But as far as I'm concerned, it just makes, this change just makes forward 2 completely unusable. Let's see, moving on from that, she got a damage nerf on Heaven and Earth 1. It does 17 damage now instead of 21. Yeah, this move, again, it doesn't matter because this entire stance is useless and impractical anyway, and it's a gimmick. The 1+2, the recovery was increased by 3 frames. This one, it was increased by 3 frames on whiff. Again, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter because this entire stance is a gimmick anyway. I think it's weird though that they increased the whiff recovery for both this move and this move by 3 and 4 frames respectively, because these moves were already very easy to duck and launch punish. I don't know why. It doesn't really matter one way or another because, you know, good players go in the launch punish these every time anyway. But they changed it. I don't know. Again, I think it's kind of irrelevant, but yeah. Pouncing Tiger, Stalking Wolf, 2 got a damage nerf by 3 points, so that's going to reduce the combo damage on something like this, and you're going to be doing 1 less damage here. It used to do 64, now it does 63, so not very significant at all. Yeah, and then 3-2. This got a damage nerf, doing 22 damage. The Just Frame version is doing 24 damage now, and they increased the recovery when it whiffs by 4 frames. And again, this, to me, I don't think this is relevant at all because this is a very gimmicky move anyway. Of course, it can be used for whiff punishment, and it can be used in some situations, but again, most of those situations are whiff punishment. But this move is very gimmicky anyway. I don't use it, so I don't think it really matters much anyway. And again, I don't understand why they shortened the recovery period of it, because it was already easy to duck and punish. But I guess enough people complained because they didn't lab the matchup, and then they got changed. I don't know. Doesn't really matter as far as I'm concerned. Forward 3, the behavior on hit got changed here, so it no longer wall splats, even on counter hit. This doesn't wall splat anymore. And because of that, forward 3 now is just an unusable move, because down forward just does everything that forward 3 does, but it's better in every way. Actually, pretty much all of her mids that she has are just better than forward 3, but in every way. Like down 2, or sorry, down 1, back 3, down forward 4, pretty much everything. Even down forward 2. Yeah, it's just it's completely pointless now. And the reason why they did this, I think, is because if you were at the wall and you did a wall combo that ended in like forward 2 or down forward 2, you could press back, and for Oki, if the opponent wakes up, you would get a mix-up of either being able to do the unblockable to resplat, or doing forward 3 to resplat. So if I did a combo like this, I'd be able to do that as a mix-up and then have a 50-50 that can resplat them. I think that's why they changed that. Now, you can still do this because you have forward 3 plus 4. See, you can still do it. But it requires a little bit more execution, and I still have to test and see if you're able to fuzzy that or not. You should, on paper, be able to, because of the difference in frames, and you have to do forward 3 plus 4 after you get out much later after you get out of the stance, because it's a forward motion instead of a forward motion. But can you still probably do this? Yeah, it's just much harder. But I think that's why they changed it. And the other reason I think they changed it because of that is it specifically says that they changed this because of the jump status being fast and the move being low risk. But then she still has this, which is just the exact same move pretty much, but you are airborne for longer, and it's 2 frames slower. So that just doesn't make sense to me, because if that was the reasoning, then forward 3 plus 4 would have got nerfed the same way, and it didn't. So yeah. Next change is forward 1 plus 2, 3, 2, 1. The last hit here got changed from -14 to -15. It's the main change, which is a good change, because what you can do with Lidia is, and you don't want to do this all the time, of course, because it does carry risk to it, but you could throw out forward 1 plus 2, 3, and the 3 and 2 here. So this one and this one are both -10 on block, but because it's multiple hits, it kind of acts like Fong's forward 1, 2, 1, 3 plus 4. I think it's forward. It might be back. No, it's forward. Back is the palm. It kind of acts that way because you can keep continuing the string, and then you can hit confirm it, and then you can get 41 damage if you just do the first 2 hits here. Right. Now, this being -15 instead of -14, I don't think really matters, because something that you could do is you could do, like, you could do the forward 1 plus 2, 3, or the forward 1 plus 2, 3, 2. And the reason why you want to mix this up here is because the 3 is -10, but if you do the 2 here, then that catches your opponent's 10-frame punish. And then if you choose to finish the string after doing the 2, then you're still going to be able to get that damage, right? 27. But now every character, except for a couple, can launch if you finish it, whereas maybe about half the characters in the game could, but practically, does it really change anything? I don't think so. It's still, the behavior is still going to be pretty much the same. Down forward 1, 3 got a slight damage nerf of 3, which is mainly to, again, reduce combo damage, as is a pretty common theme in this patch for Lidia. Down forward 1 plus 2 also got a 3 damage nerf to nerf combos such as this, if I could actually do it correctly. Oh my goodness gracious. So that got a slight damage nerf. Down back 2 is now does 14 damage instead of 17. I think this is a really strange change because Dragunov's down 2 got buffed in this patch, and the reasoning they gave for buffing it, and they buffed it by making it so on hit the opponent is in a crouching status, and the reasoning they gave is because characters' punishments in this patch got better, so they made the move better to be able to compensate for that. But what's weird about Lidia is her down back 2 is practically just a worse version of Dragunov's down 2. It's worse in terms of frames, it's worse on block, it's worse on hit. And they buffed damage on Dragunov's, and they didn't do it, and they made Lidia's worse. Which is, it's fine, because she has a health sweep and Dragunov doesn't. And she has the slow as well, which isn't bad. But it just seems weird for them to say that and then nerf this and make it do 14 damage, because now this move feels kinda meh. I mean, it tracks both ways, sure, but it's also -14 already, so only doing 14 damage and being -14 and being -1 on hit is just, it's a strange move, because is it still usable? Yeah, but I think if one more frame got worse, if it came out like 19 frames or it did 12 damage, you know, or Jesus, if it was -15, then it would be completely useless. So I think it's on like the brink right now of being redundant. But yeah, it can't get much worse, but is it still usable? Sure. It's just a weird change, I think. Down back 3 plus 4 does 1 less damage now, again, to change combo damage. And then her hop kick recovery was increased by 2 frames for both players, so it just gives you more time to be able to punish the hop kick, which is fine. It's just going to make it easier to punish online, which is fine. And that's all of Lidia's changes. So what do I think of all of these changes? She hasn't changed. That's really the extent of it. Lidia really hasn't changed, as far as I'm concerned. The most notable change, the most important change that she got in this patch, without a doubt, is to her forward 3 plus 4 rage drive. To me, the only reason why you're going to use this rage drive now is if as a whiff punish. And don't get me wrong, as a whiff punish, it's great. It's phenomenal as a whiff punish, and you might even be able to use it as a punish too, if you have good execution and you block something that's like -14, -15, and it still does a chunk. Right, 75 damage and wall carry as well. It still does very good damage. It does more damage than her hop kick does. It's good, right? It's good. But on block, you're not getting that mix-up anymore. At least against a good player, you're not getting that mix-up anymore, and that is a big nerf, right? Because before, you know, if you got that mix-up, you would be getting... Oops. I don't know, a chunk, right? You'd be getting a good amount of damage off of that, and then if they blocked the 1+2, you'd be getting a solid 41, right? So, and you'd be getting even more at the wall, and not being able to get that in Rage anymore definitely tones down her comeback potential. And playing Lidia throughout the day today, I could definitely feel her comeback potential wasn't as high as it was before. But she still has the other Rage drive, which people forget about, it seems, which is this one. And this Rage drive is still super good. It's still super good because it's doing 26. It's doing 47 damage still, and it's a low, and it's -12 in forces crouch. It's very good. Now, of course, there are going to be some characters like Leo and Julia, or the Mishimas, where their while rising 11 frame punish or 12 frame punish is going to be very strong, right? And if you're back to the wall for some characters, it's going to be even stronger. So it is a little bit more matchup specific, but the Rage drive is still very strong, and she still definitely has that comeback potential. But now the difference is you have to set it up. But what's good about this is that for me, this has been my go-to Rage drive now, and this has been making people really scared of, like, if I do this, right? And sometimes if I do this and just do nothing, I can press back, make them whiff a button, and then I get the unblockable, because they are very scared of having to eat the mix-up out of the second stance. Or, you know, I can do this, I can do this, right? And catch them whiffing a button, and then tail spin them. And then if I do get into the second stance, they're going to be crouching a lot, because again, they don't want to eat that low, because it does a ton of damage. But my mid options are safe, right? And they're very, very strong. So she still has that comeback potential, and I think people just need to play around with the second Rage drive more, because everyone's been using, including myself, has been using the first one because it's so strong. But you know, does that nerf, or does that bring it down a bit? Sure. But I think her other Rage drive still makes up for that, and I think even though you have to set it up, if you learn how to set it up and you learn how to use it correctly in the mind game that comes with it correctly, it's still very, very, very powerful. Not as powerful as the other one, don't get me wrong, but it's still very powerful, especially if your opponent's at the wall, right? Because then if your opponent's at the wall, then of course the 2 here, which again is safe, wall splats, and that's going to get you a ton of damage too, especially when you're in Rage. And then if they're not ducking, then you still get this. So just, yeah, very, 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 very strong still. Besides that, the rest of the changes I don't think really matter. You know, the change to Catfoot 1 and her Evan and Earth stance, I already said it. I think those stances are irrelevant, and she may as well not have them. So any changes to them, besides making Heaven and Earth, this one, the transition faster so you can't react to it, I think all of those changes are completely irrelevant. so whatever. And then it's just like damage reductions, and then nerfing the recovery on highs that were already easy to launch punish anyway, which doesn't really matter. So I guess the only other 2 changes that really matter, forward 3, not wall spline, but you can still just use forward 3 plus 4, and it does practically the same thing in almost every circumstance that forward 3 did. And the damage nerf to down back 2 is, yeah, it's there, but it's not like this is her go-to low, right? She still has her health sweep, it's still the same, and she still has down back 4, and down back 2 still serves the same purpose it did before, right? So overall, I don't think she's much different. I think you have to, and me playing her, I haven't really changed how I've been playing her outside of if I'm in rage, then I'm going to try utilizing this stance a little bit more to scare my opponent and intimidate my opponent. And personally, I've actually been enjoying doing that a lot more and experimenting with ways to set up this stance and make my opponent scared of this stance and playing mind games with this stance more. So I'm quite happy with that. Because being able to do this and play this mind game with rage is actually quite fun, and it's very, very enjoyable. But yeah, for me, nothing about playing this character has changed. She feels the same. I'd still say she's the best character in the game. Any arguments that someone makes for her being around top 5, I'd agree with. That's why I've been saying for the past month. You know, when she came out, I said she was unequivocally the best character in the game. Over time, I still think she is, but I think any argument that someone will make for top 5 will probably agree with, whereas before I would have said no, she's just the best character in the game. But I can't see her being below top 5, and these changes, again, do, as far as I'm concerned, practically nothing to change the character. So still the best character in the game, and I'm gonna keep playing her, and I'm gonna keep enjoying myself playing her because she's a great character, both in terms of balance and in terms of design. I've been loving playing her for the past 2 months, and I'm going to keep playing her. So yeah, that's everything I think on Lidia in this patch.